Going, guys, we're going to go over some physical and chemical properties and changes. I'm going to kind of just go through most of the common ones, and then there's a few that can sometimes be kind of tricky. Okay, so I'm just going to divide it up like that, and then we're going to go at it one at a time. Physical and chemical. Sorry for the handwriting there. Okay, so basically physical properties are things that you can observe or identify without changing the substance. So for example, a lot of the common ones like texture, that's one you can kind of look at it. Color, same thing, you can observe that. Now density, volume, mass, all those are things that you have to put on a scale or something like that, or determine them using like a graduated cylinder in water or something like that. But you can determine them without changing the substance. That's the key detail here. Boiling point is also something that can be determined, as well as melting point. Those kind of may seem like chemical changes, but it's the same substance, it's just in a different form of matter. So they can be determined without changing the actual element or the mixture, whatever it is. Yep, so, and then as far as physical properties, there's a few to watch out for, because they aren't commonly known. People don't normally use them. But these four are things that are common to metals and metalloids. That's another thing they're common to. So they're the characteristics. Lustrous, that basically suggests metalloids or metals are shiny. That just, their reflectiveness or whatever. Another one is malleable. Malleable is basically the ability of a metal to be flattened or thinned, perhaps with like a hammer or something like that, into like sheets. Ductile is another weird one that determines it's the metal's ability to be thinned out into like a wire or a strand. And the final one is just basically conduction, or being conductors. And keep in mind that has to do with heat and electric. So yeah, these are things to watch out for, because if someone asks you on a test, is being ductile a physical or chemical property, it's going to be a physical property, but if you don't know what that means, it might be kind of tricky. Okay, so now for the chemical properties, we have basically things that you'd have to use a reaction in order to determine. So for one, flammability. That's a really common one. Also toxicity. And heat of combustion. You might think that sounds similar to like melting point, but heat of combustion refers to like a flame, not necessarily the changing of a substance from one form of matter to another, but like literally it combusts, so the chemical is most likely changing in some way. It would have to be. So other ones are reactivity. That one I think is pretty obvious, but if you're reacting it with another chemical, you're going to be changing something, and you can't get back the initial without making a new reaction. So that's kind of the main ones there. Now for changes, I'll break this one down again. Physical and chemical. Physical changes, there's a lot of different ways to spin them on tests and things like that, but essentially what you're looking for is it mechanically changing? So really common ones are like crushing a can. It's still a can, it's still, say, aluminum or whatever, it's just being condensed physically, but that doesn't change the actual substance. Other ones are like shredding paper, or even, I don't know, let's see, folding cardboard. things like that. Anything that's basically changing it or breaking it down. We have other ones like, for instance, mixing oil and water. Oil and water. Or it could be other things like sand and water. Basically things that you can imagine in your mind would be separating. They're not forming a new substance. It's not reacting with the water. It's just in the water. Anything like that. Now, a couple that you really want to watch out for with physical changes, a lot of professors will go to like water, like so any kind of change of water. So you can think of the common ones, evaporation, condensation, freezing, melting. Those are some. These, I guess, are probably the most commonly understood ones, and if you understand the way that the really basic chemistry, I mean, it's H2O, whether it's being condensed or freezing or melting, whichever state of matter it's in, solid, liquid, or gas, it's still water. Now, these two are ones that, like, personally, I did not know: sublimation and deposition. Those two are also changes that happen with water, and they're not a chemical reaction or anything like that. It's just changing. So sublimation is solid into gas, and deposition is the opposite. It's gas to a solid. They're kind of more rare in nature. I know like sublimation can happen more like in the wintertime with like ice. It can kind of evaporate from like solid bricks of ice on the street into the air. Deposition is even more rare, I think. But yeah, just look out for those ones, because if you haven't heard of what they are, it might sound like a chemical reaction. And now for the chemical, a really common one is like cooking chicken or cooking an egg. Basically, you're looking for, are you forming a new substance, or does a new substance form from what you're doing? So another one is burning charcoal. And souring of milk. That's another one because the milk is changing on a chemical level. It's becoming a new substance over time, even if it's just because it's left out. Another one is digesting of food, because while you do physically break it down in your mouth, then when it's in your stomach, it's broken down as well. Sugar being turned into caramel from heat. Caramel, whatever you say. It's a new substance form. Even though the sugar is melting, it's transforming into a new substance. And another really common one is rusting of iron, because the rusted iron is a new substance from the iron. So these are just some to watch out for, and these ones that I starred are kind of the ones that I think it's really the only way someone can throw you off if you have a decent bearing on how this works. So I hope this helps someone.